Then you have one of his teammates, Dispo, who represents obviously another side of that Pride Trooper mentality, because Dispo, he's much more aggressive and energetic than Top, but there's still a very clear sense that he views being a Pride Trooper as something meaningful, right? Because his confidence isn't really separate from his role, if you understand what I'm saying. He's proud of being one of the people who responds when there's a threat. We saw that in the Tournament of Power, and that distinction matters. The Pride Troopers aren't necessarily supposed to be preventing every problem from happening, right? They're essentially the people or the fighters who quote unquote respond to the problems powerful enough that require them. And I think that makes them closer to a specialized group of protectors than just a traditional band of soldiers like you may have been thinking. And then last but not least, the strongest member of the group, we have Jiren. Now Jiren is where the concept starts to get a little bit complicated, because technically he's a part of the Pride Troopers, but philosophically he doesn't seem really dependent on the organization at all, if you're paying attention. And I think that's done intentionally, because Jiren has his own understanding of strength, his own understanding of justice and responsibility. Very key traits here. And he doesn't necessarily need the Pride Troopers in order to validate himself, right? And he certainly doesn't seem motivated by the same ideals that drive Top or maybe even Dispo, even though Dispo and Top both seem to respect and understand Jiren is just a bit different. But yet he's still operating within the organization, right? And I think that's important because it tells us that the Pride Troopers are not necessarily defined by just identical personalities or identical motivations, maybe such as a group like the Ginyu Force, right? But the Pride Troopers, I think they're defined by a quote shared function, and their shared function is to protect the goodness and the good people of Universe 11. So how each individual arrives at that responsibility, that obviously looks different depending on which Pride Trooper member you're looking at. And that's probably the best way to really understand who they are. They're not just superheroes, guys, in the traditional sense, where every member necessarily has the same quote unquote moral philosophy. They're really a group of highly capable fighters who have essentially decided that their strength should serve a larger purpose. You know what I mean? They opted to be heroes of their universe. They totally did not have to go that way, go that route. And imagine if they didn't, how different would their characters actually be? And again, Dragon Ball, I don't think really gives us many examples of this, and I think it's rare, and it's most of its strongest characters in the show, in the series, in the manga, and the anime, they are very individualistic, right? Even when they're fighting for the same side, they're usually pursuing their own reasons for doing it. Goku and Vegeta still to this day do that. The Pride Troopers, they're the inverse version of that. The organization comes first above all, and the individual interpretations of justice, they have to exist inside the organization. But the organization's priority to protect the good people of Universe 11, I think fundamentally makes the Pride Troopers' existence different than characters and warriors from other universes. Because you see, Universe 7's defenders tend to emerge organically, right? Heroes arise because you're going through a pot to lick it, gosh.